everyone, I'm your host, Brittany Jones Cooper, and welcome back to Build. Today, I'm sitting down with Brittany Snow, who we love from the Pitch Perfect franchise, and most recently from the film Someone Great. Now she's starring in the new Fox show, Almost Family, which follows the messy fallout after it's revealed that an infertility doctor used his own sperm to conceive hundreds of children, who, for better or worse, are now family. Put your hands together for Brittany Snow. How you doing today?
Pretty good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
I have to say, it's nice to meet another Brittany, but we're like basically the same age. I think I'm like a month older than you.
Oh.
And I only really meet Brittany's that are like
That's
in
true.
the 3 or 5 years of when I was born.
It's a big name, yeah,
Do you find that to be the case for you?
Yes, and everyone wants to spell it Britney Spears way, and at a certain point, I'm just like, yeah, that's fine. I don't care.
think it's offensive. Actually.
Really? You
I
think it's
the
offensive?
way we spell it is the way.
I think our way is the original way, right? So, yeah,
So
represent.
there you go. Just we had to clear that up. I got to check out the first 2 episodes of Almost Family, and I've never seen a show that explores this dynamic, which makes it so interesting, and I think really sets it apart from a lot of the other shows out there. Is that what kind of drew to you? Is just this all the different dynamics that you get to kind of play out?
Right. On the surface, it's a risky concept. It's something that a lot of people don't like talking about. I don't even like saying the word, and obviously, I say the word material. And it's a hard thing to wrap your head around, because this is a very terrible thing that this man has done. But he's also my father, and I think what this show does is explores the humanity, and we make sure that we don't heroize him, but we don't villainize him as well. But we really see this man who falls from grace, but in the same way he is, someone's father. He's my character's father, and it centers around 3 women who are from completely different backgrounds, and we have to formulate a family and how we're going to work together and live together as a unit.
And it's interesting because I think I remember it was a couple years ago reading a real story about an infertility doctor who did something similar. So do you know how much of that inspired the script? Or are there any like parts that are pulled from the headlines?
This is originally a format that was developed and shown in Australia, and it actually is on Netflix. The show is called Sisters, and I was a big fan of Sisters. And so when I heard that they were going to do the American version, I was really excited about that, because I loved all the characters, and I loved the really great balance of comedy and drama that they instilled. But I think with this show, we got to explore even deeper, because hopefully we'll go on, and each characters are vastly different than the Australian series. But what I know is that they developed the story from things that have happened in the news, and these are prevalent stories that unfortunately have happened with fertility doctors.
It's so crazy to even think about that being a reality, but it is, and that's why it's nice to have the entertainment version of it to sort of explore everything. So you played Julia, who is the only child who was raised by this infertility doctor. So who is she in this show?
Right. So Julia Bechley is seemingly the only daughter of Leon Bechley, the fertility doctor. And she grows up in a very codependent way with her father, thinking that he is this renowned, godlike sort of figure. And what she comes to realize is, and what I think a lot of people come to realize, especially in their 20s and 30s, is that maybe your parents are human and have done a lot of terrible things, or maybe not so great things. And I think that Julia really has to grapple with that fact, and also trying to maintain who she is, because her identity has been so wrapped up into making him the star and making sure that he's doing well, that now she has to find out who she is. And so I really related to that, and I also really wanted to explore that, where the main focal man character falls from grace, and his daughter has to figure out how to pick up the pieces.
You said you relate to Julia. In which ways? What are the similarities?
Well, not all the similarities, because she's kind of a mess, but
aren't we all, Brittany?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm a mess too. But I think, she really leads with her heart. She's an honest character, and she, to her detriment, she takes care of other people, and she kind of puts her own needs sometimes by the wayside because she wants to help others. She's also one of those people that definitely does before she thinks, and I'm completely guilty of that. I always later on in the day think to myself, what did I just say, and what did I just do? And I always find myself in really weird, quirky situations, and I try to get out of them by using humor. And Julia does that all the time, where she finds herself in precarious situations and just tries to work it out with a joke.
But her heart is so pure, and you can see that when we introduce her two half sisters, who are played by Megalyn Ichinwoke and Emily Osment. And I love you three together. There's so much fun chemistry. So can you sort of explain what it's been like to get to play with them and what it's like on set?
Well, we're actually in sort of this meta way becoming our characters because we're having to formulate our own family, and that's been really interesting to get to meet these girls and then have to be, basically living in the same city as them now, and also getting to work together. And so we really had to bond quickly, and we are very similar to our characters in some ways, and that's been kind of fun to get to play around with. Also, there's so much comedy in this show, and I think that we really like that balance of getting to have those heavy grounded moments, but also getting to improv and try things out. And the show really wants us to be more comedic, so that's sometimes fun.
There is that fine balance of a dramedy like this, and you really get. I feel like a lot of the comedic relief comes from Emily. Like, I think I forgot how funny she is.
She's hilarious.
Her
yeah.
facial expressions and just all those little things. Is it sort of sometimes hard to keep a straight face?
We all laugh a lot on this show, and weirdly enough, Timothy Hutton is actually hilarious. He's not supposed to be in the show, but because he's a terrible person on the show. But yeah, everyone is really hilarious, especially Emily. Yeah,
Yeah, it is funny with his character, Dr. Beckley. Is that what it is? You do find yourself kind of sympathizing. And it's like this weird balance, right? Because he did something horrific, but at the same time, for a lot of these couples, it was sort of their last efforts or he was trying to help them.
right. Well, I think for his mentality, and I'm sure I can't speak for Tim and his process of developing Leon, but I think he knows that in some way he was trying to do the right thing, even though it was a terrible thing to do. He knew that this would work, and although it's probably a godlike complex to make sure that it happens, in his mind, he thinks that they get a baby. And my character is completely combating that and saying these are not just outcomes in a spreadsheet. This is like real life. And
these are people that are now knocking on my door, asking to sleep on my couch.
Right. And it's crazy because this is a real life thing that's happened. And so I think it's interesting to explore what these people and what people in the world have actually gone through and the emotions that they've gone through this.
There's that, which is, I guess, the more rarer situation. But there's also, I think, just millions of people out there who have half siblings, right? Or people who discover they have siblings at a later point in their lives, and you have to come together. I'm somebody who has a very blended family, and there is something about like, you're related to somebody, but you actually have to get to know them. And you're like, do I love you because we're related? Like, there's like this. Right. So these three are really kind of exercising that daily.
Yeah, I hope so. And I think that's a huge part of this. I've actually talked to a friend of mine who found out only a couple months ago that her father donated, and she didn't know that she had siblings. And so they had to get together and they really, talked through like, do you do this? And can you, do this sort of weird thing with your hand? And do you gain weight easily? And all these things they sat around and talked about. And I think I asked her on the phone and I said, do you guys have this innate feeling like you need to get along, or is it just weird? And she said it's just kind of weird. but I think that what this show is trying to do is make sure that these are all three women that need each other, and because we're family, we formulate those bonds.
I think 23andMe too is bringing up a lot more situations like this, which is again why the timing of the show seems pretty perfect, because I feel like I've had friends who have discovered siblings or like aunts and uncles through 23andMe and stuff. It's so like happening daily now. So you're the lead on this show, and this is the first show you've been a lead of since American Dream, right? Which was 17 years ago.
Oh gosh, so long ago.
2002, I think, is when it.
I was like 15 when I started it, and then I was 18 when it ended. So,
which is crazy. I mean, that was so long ago. How has your approach changed to being on a series like this versus when you were 15 or 16? Like how much has the industry sort of like shaped you to be prepared for this?
Oh gosh, it's changed so much. And I was a kid when I was doing that show, and I really went into every scene and every situation just kind of hoping for the best. And I think I have a lot more experience now. And I was much more concerned with, if that boy liked me and doing my scenes as opposed to now. But I think now, I've gone through a lot personally and professionally, and I think that my idea of what what I like and how I get inspired and what I do when I come to a character and try to create it is completely different. And I've gone a long time being really, really picky, but also in the same time, I took some time off because I was so young when I started. And so I wanted to make sure I did it the right way.
So what is it now that you look at or look for in a project? Just you said you're a little more picky and things like that. What is it that sort of draws something to you?
I really just want to do things that inspire me and that I go to work every day and I feel kind of nervous and excited and scared because I don't really know how it's going to work out. And that's really inspiring to me. I also just don't want to take the easy route of just working to work. I would rather do something that's a little different. But yeah, it's been an interesting road of navigating personal life and professional life and making sure that I have those moments where I get to just be me and not having to be on anything or do anything.
Yeah, I would imagine that would be. I mean, if you spend your entire life doing something, I would imagine you have to find those places where you can just be Brittany, not like public Brittany.
Yeah, I'm not very public anyway. Like, not no one really cares. So, but yeah, I mean, I feel like I since I was in the business for so long, I didn't know if I wanted to go back to television and do something day in and day out and the grind of that if I wasn't completely sure about the character and what we were doing.
I feel like at least recently, a lot of the projects that I've seen you in, and I watch pretty much everything you're in. There a lot of female-driven narratives, and there's this like emphasis on friendships and relationships, and the men are very much kind of secondary. Is that something you look for? Because I find that to be really empowering, and it's the sort of content I'm drawn to, and I keep seeing you in that space.
Thank you. It's not a conscious choice to be in these girl like power groups that I keep finding myself in, but what I do look for is female driven storytelling, and usually more often than not the people that have been leading the helm of this have all been women, and that's why they've created stories. Someone Great, Pitch Perfect, this, we all have women showrunners or directors or writers. And so I think because of that, I see my voice in it and I hear it and I find it special, and I think that's what I want to be a part of.
Yeah. And we were chatting in the back, and you mentioned that you're moving behind the camera, which I didn't know, which is so cool, producing and directing. So, what inspired you to like make that jump and really take on that challenge?
I've always been very vocal to a fault about my not I hate that my process. There's no process. I just am trying my best. But I think I really like to be on both sides, and so I've always really felt like I could lend my voice to that, and I felt like there was a lack of that sometimes in projects that I did when I was a kid and growing up, and I always wanted to write and direct something, so I wrote and directed my first short film last year, and then I produced a movie a couple months ago that's coming out next year, and that I also starred in. But it's been really fun to get to be on the other side and make a collaborative, cohesive experience for everyone.
Let's talk about the directing. I feel like that would be like such a big undertaking. So, what did you do, or who did you study, or what was that kind of process to get you to that point?
Well, I always had my eye on it when I was doing any sort of acting. But then I started shadowing a lot of my director friends. My one friend, Maggie Kiley, who directed me in Dial of Prayer, I started shadowing her. I did some online classes. And then it's kind of just turning on your brain to what's going on around you, and through osmosis and, and studying, you kind of pick up little things here and there. And I've always been interested in that side. So it kind of was a long time coming. And then when I finally was faced with doing it, I was like, well, I hope I studied enough because it's happening. And I still have so much to learn. I mean, and that's what's really fun about doing this show is I get to be on set all the time and get to learn as well.
Yeah, and you're on set. You guys are filming it in New York?
In Brooklyn and all over, New York.
And you had to move here for that.
Right, yeah.
I'm sorry.
No.
How's it going? Just because it's starting to get cold, and I'm like, if you were living out in LA, I'm sorry.
I kind of like the seasonal changes. I'm from Florida originally, where there's none of that. And then moving to California, there's not really either. I mean, I say that now, but talk to me in January, and I'm like, I don't want to be here anymore. But no, it's been such an adjustment, but something really cool. My fiance and I talk about all the time that one day we're going to look back at this and think, remember that time we lived in New York and we hated the cold and dressed in all the mittens and sweaters and it's in the future.
Right.
Yeah.
How much fun is it to tape a show in New York, though? I feel like there's so much energy, and you guys shoot on the street, and all the. Does that like kind of breathe new life into a project?
It definitely does. And I feel like what's great about in Almost Family, we utilize New York a lot and we make sure that it's seen. And as an actress and as somebody who grew up in the business, you would always see people shooting on New York, streets and down in West Village and the cobblestones, and you think to yourself, God, gosh, I can't wait to do that. And so when we've done that, it's been kind of a surreal, pretty crazy moment.
Living in New York also affords you the opportunity to go to the U.S. Open, which I saw
Right.
you at recently with Anna Kendrick.
Yeah.
It's funny. I've interviewed Anna Kendrick and Ruby Rose in the last week. I'm having like a whole Pitch Perfect
Oh,
week.
awesome.
But can we just talk about that photo of you two watching Serena? And
Oh, yeah.
And did you know that you were being photographed? Because
No.
it was so intense.
I did not know. Well, obviously, every time I hang out with Kendrick, I forget that she's so famous. So I forget that someone's taking a picture of her at all times. And I'm obviously not ready for that because no one takes any pictures of me like that. And so, like, I'm just like, a mess and drinking my tequila and having the best time. And she's like, there's people watching us. But we had so much fun. And yeah, it was like a cool experience to get to see Serena, but I don't know why we're so serious in that moment. It's just
Because
the worst
it was
picture.
a high stakes match.
It was.
I mean, everybody was feeling that way.
But it wasn't really that close of a match. So our faces just seem like it's like a do or die situation. I don't know.
It really did look like it was down to like the final match point.
It wasn't.
But it was.
Yeah.
But I think you were just capturing. When I looked at that photo, I was like also grasping my pearls. You know what I mean? Like it was like that
right.
sort of match.
Yeah, she was doing that, I think. No, it was just, it's fun to get to be in that environment too, because, you watch on TV and you don't feel the energy of the grunting and there's just so much emotion going on. It made me like almost cry.
I love that. So you mentioned your fiance. You're living in New York. What are you just most looking forward to in the next year? I mean, it seems like there's a lot of like really positive things going on for you.
Thank you. I'm excited to get married, and we're excited for our wedding, and excited to be living here, but also to go back home to LA and be married in LA. And yeah, I am really looking forward to the movie that I have coming out that I produced, and to get to produce more and direct more. I wrote a screenplay with Chrissy Fit from Pitch Perfect, and we're hoping to get that made as well. So yeah, things like that.
You wrote the screenplay.
Yeah.
So what is I don't give it away, I guess, but what's the like vibe of it?
It's a romantic comedy, but it's set with dual storylines, kind of like Sliding Doors. Yeah, it's my favorite movie.
It's a really
so,
good
yeah.
tease. I reference Sliding Doors so much.
Everyone should. Yes. Everything revolves around sliding doors.
Really, because yeah, anyway, I'll go way off the rails on that, but I'm very interested in this script.
Okay,
I can't
great.
wait to see it.
I'll tell you about it later.
Awesome. Before we go, we do have a couple of questions. Who has the first one?
Oh, hey.
Hey, I love your dress.
Oh, thank you.
So you've been nominated and won many awards. What would you say it's been well, to me, you won many awards. What would you say has been your biggest accomplishment?
This is going to sound so cheesy, but I took some time off of acting and had to start over a little bit personally and professionally. And I think my greatest achievement is coming back from that and having to wrap my own head around the fact that I could, and no one was going to get mad at me or forget me, or all these things that people in the business tell you, and getting to still work, because I'm so lucky to do what I do, and to be able to take time off and still have a career is something that I don't take lightly. So that's my greatest accomplishment. Thanks.
What do you do to silence those voices of doubt? Because that would be a huge thing to try to transition back into an industry that we know can be very unforgiving.
Right.
Like, do you do positive affirmations? Do you journal? Like, what kind of work do you do? Because I'm really interested in that journey.
I do all of the tools. I've done all of the things. And yeah, it's talking to myself differently. I was raised as a kid actor where a lot of my self-talk was making sure that I did the right thing and I had to be perfect. And I got better because I pushed myself in a negative way, and retraining my brain to push myself with positivity instead of if you don't do this, that was a huge turnaround for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I do think that's something you start to learn. I don't know when that happened for you, but like I said, we're the same age. Like in your late 20s, early 30s, you just learn to be kinder to yourself.
Right.
It's like, why couldn't I have done this at 17?
And people have told you that. People have told you that your whole life, and it just suddenly sinks in. You're going to do the same thing either way, so why not be kinder to yourself?
Exactly. Next one.
Hi.
So it seems like Almost Family is kind of spinning the found family trope a little. Why do you feel like the shared story between the three leads in the show is an important story to tell today?
I think it's an important story to tell today because I think 10 years ago you wouldn't have seen a story where it's centered around three women, all so different, and the white male character is the person that we're kind of shining the light on as the negative character. And I think we're each strong women that are individually going through something, but we're not being victims about it. We're very not passive at all. We're kind of being strong-willed and sometimes to a negative degree. And I think that's what, in this day and age we need more of is women that, yes, are flawed, but they're quite strong in their choices and they mess up as they go and they don't apologize for being messy and being crazy and trying to figure out their own way. And having, a little bit of levity at the same time. Thanks.
That is a perfect way to put it because you're right. Each character is dealing with some major theme in her life. I mean, the show deals with LGBTQ issues, drug abuse. I mean, it really goes into these deep issues, but there is this levity that sort of helps you sort of process it.
There's definitely levity to it. It's a tricky balance because you don't want anything to be seen as making fun of or light of. But at the same time, our showrunner, Annie Weisman, says that there's a lot of comedy and tragedy, and I tend to agree with that. And I think what the show does really well is that these women are navigating these tough things, but they are taking it, not taking it lightly, but taking it with a grain of salt and trying to, laugh.
And they're doing it together.
Yeah.
That's why it's so fun to watch. And the soundtrack is really awesome. I forgot to
great.
mention that. I really enjoy it.
Oh, perfect.
So you guys, if you want to enjoy the soundtrack and this amazing performance by Brittany Snow, you guys can check out Almost Family. It premieres on Wednesday, October 2nd on Fox. Put your hands together for Brittany.
Thank you.
Thanks.